The damage the floods in Nigeria have caused can be measured, as the floods have cost the country billions of dollars in infrastructure. In Bayelsa State alone, reports show that floods have displaced over 700,000 people and submerged some 300 communities, an indictment on the authorities for not being proactive to prevent or at least minimize the disastrous impact of the floods. Bayelsa experiences perennial flooding every year due to its peculiar terrain of lowlands of about 6 meters below sea level. With gas clearing and oil exploration activities taking place daily, the development is exacerbated by global warming. In this special report, Ovieteme George examines the situation in Bayelsa, rated a grade A flood disaster state in 2012 by the Nigerian Meteorological Agency.
The fierce current of rushing waters tear through the road, destroying everything in its path. It appears nature is fighting back after many years of neglect and human activities exacerbated by what experts call global warming. This was the experience of Bayelsa State in 2012, a state strategically characterized by lowlands of about 6 meters below sea level. At the peak of the ravaging flood, farmlands were washed away, along with damage to property, causing movement to strategic highlands and migration from rural to urban areas. Flood victims flooded the internally displaced persons camps in Yenagoa, attracting sympathizers, including former President Goodluck Jonathan and American gospel artist Juanita Bynum. The flood held its peace and the people returned home only confronted by post-flood food crisis. A decade after, the natural hazard poses yet a more potent threat sweeping through the communities in Bayelsa State. One of the most impacted communities is Biseni in Yenagoa local government area, where the people have fled their submerged homes to live on the bridge. Other areas visibly impacted by the flood include Governor Douye Diri's community, Sampo, and Otueke, hometown of former President Goodluck Jonathan. Anderson Timebi Pelea is a member of the Bayelsa State Football Referees Council.
This is my house. You can see
he lives at the Bakery Road area of Azikoro, a community on the outskirts of Yenagoa, the capital city.
That other side is going down. This side, the water, all the whole water is coming here. As we are standing on the water, this side is shallow a bit, but that side is more deeper because we get to a little highland. After that little highland, we get to the deeper part of it, and all those areas everywhere is being flooded. It's been flooded. There is no way to survive it. They give birth to some newborn babies and they give birth to them on the water.
We board canoes at various points where the flood is chest deep, paddling to a certain area to disembark. I'm wondering, why did the canoe stop here?
This is the landing jetty.
Landing jetty?
Yes,
we land on water.
We land on water.
Go, let the heli go.
Sorry. Jesus. Sorry. I want phone. Go in your pocket. Come out. Come out your phone. Sorry.
Ogochukwu, my camera operator, is injured. He pours local gin on the surface of the wound and continues his video recording of the flood. It's a period of agony and pain for the people of Bakery Road in Swale, what they call a land flowing with milk and honey is overtaken by the unwanted visitor, flood.
I took my children out because I don't want anything to happen to them. I took them to my sister's place so that they can stay safe while I and my husband will stay there to monitor our house so that armed robber will not get to our house because they break people's house. We plead to government to look into our situation. They should come and rescue us. They should give us some palliative so that we will have joy.
Succinctly, Bayelsa is underwater, and the man in the saddle of governance in Creek Haven becomes a regular visitor to the camp of persons displaced by the flood.
Bayelsa will not die. Bayelsa will not relocate. Bayelsa is a blessed land.
The flood has altered Governor Diri's official engagements. He visits one community after another as part of a tour of the flood-impacted local government areas of the state.
The level of the water current is as if there is a river here. And this is what I have been saying over and over. Bayelsa is under attack of natural disaster.
We hereby empathize with all victims across the state, assuring that as representatives of the people, we are in unison, working assiduously in partnership with relevant ministries, departments, and agencies to bring succor to the affected populace. It is our additional call, therefore, on Mr. President to declare a state of emergency in Bayelsa State.
The cry of the governor and his people echo in Abuja and other parts of the country, drawing Nigerians to the plight of the oil-producing state of Bayelsa, where oil was first discovered in commercial quantity in June 1956. Former Anambra State Governor Peter Obi, the president of Azikel Group, Dr. Azibapo Eruani, God bless, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, and Akwa Ibom State Governor Udom Emmanuel are among those who have made commitments to the Bayelsa State government concerning the welfare of persons displaced by the flood. Among the extreme casualties of the monster flood is Douye Ernest, a footballer who helped to rescue 5 persons from a capsized canoe but was swept away by the fierce current of the overflowing Bebelebri 2 River close to the Federal Medical Center, Yenagoa.
I'm grateful for the scholarship given to my children. He was the breadwinner of our family, and he has left us with children to fend for. I'll be very grateful if more Nigerians will come out to assist us in any way they can. And to the government, I want to appeal that if they can give me employment.
A bird's eye view of the situation reveals that communities of the local government areas of Bayelsa State are in dire straits and in need of help from the international community. It's canoe business in Bayelsa as the people try to grapple with the harsh realities of the effects of a merciless flood. For now, what's uppermost on their minds is for the waters to recede, for them to return home. Ofietime George, Arise News.
Joining us on this show this morning as we discuss the damage the flooding has caused in the oil-rich state of Bayelsa and what the government is doing so far to alleviate the suffering of the people is Douye Diri, Governor of Bayelsa State. Welcome to the morning show, Governor Diri.
Thank you, Abati.
Good morning. Good morning. Good to have you on the program. Well, Governor Diri, this morning, if you check Instagram and social media, you were shown dancing in church vigorously. And some people are saying, oh, is this the time to be dancing, although you were in church? Because the people of Bayelsa State are not dancing. You have had to call for a state of emergency You have also accused the federal government of not responding properly to the devastation in your state. First, clarify the video, in case it was an old video, or you say, well, you were in church.
No.
So, and then, of course, tell us about how the federal government has been neglecting your state.
Well, thank you, Abati. That's not an old video. That's a new video, a video of yesterday. You know, in my state, there is a law that was signed by my predecessor in 2012. And that law is that every 2nd of November, the state will have an annual Thanksgiving. And so this year wasn't an exception. Yes, we are more like in a mourning mood. But again, I was encouraged because the Bible has a standard. The Bible says, in all things, give thanks to God. And so we decided not to put off the Thanksgiving. And that was why you can see me dancing. The same way I saw my people dancing when I visited them in their own communities where they are internally displaced. They were dancing, they were clapping, and that's a way to overcome the sorrows that we experience as we speak.
Yes, about the federal government ignoring the suffering of the people in Bayelsa State.
Yeah, you know, there is nothing we can do from our end to actually assuage the feelings of the people to the level of their being very satisfied with us with very meager resources that we have. And we believe that this is the time we needed the federal government, who we see as a father to us. And this is the 4th week. It's about a month now that Bayelsa has been sitting under waters. So I have made calls, I have appealed, and up until this moment, we don't have one federal government senior, very senior official in the mold of maybe the president, the vice president, or the minister, you know, just to give us hope, encourage us, and deploy the federal might to our state to say we stand with you. And that would have been a very big encouragement and hope for the people of the state. But we don't want to overflog that issue. We are still calling on them. We still appeal to them to see what we are going through and do the needful. I just saw videos of 2012 where we had a similar deluge of flooding, which wasn't anything comparable to what we are experiencing this year. And I saw the president himself, you know, going around flooded states. And so we had anticipated and expected that this time around too, we'll have either the president, if he's very busy, maybe the vice president, or a very senior official to, you know, come to commiserate with us, empathize with us, sympathize with us, deploy the federal might to assuage and give succor to the people of Bayelsa State.
Mr. Governor, what do you mean by the federal government has not done anything? There was a story that came out late October, for verification's sake, 25th October, and I also saw the footages on NTA that says an NAF 913 plane, that's a Hercules C-130, airlifted relief materials out of Benin, then straight to into Port Harcourt, onward to Bayelsa as relief materials. Didn't you get that?
Those footages you saw, those rice bags were procured by the government of Bayelsa State.
So it was not the federal government?
I made it very clear not by the federal government, but the Nigerian Air Force assisted in airlifting them. in airlifting them. And those foodstuffs were airlifted to Port Harcourt. In fact, the arrangement was that they should actually, the Herculean 130 plane should actually land in Yenagoa. But unfortunately, they declined landing in Yenagoa. And that was why they had to go to Port Harcourt. And from Port Harcourt, they used the helicopters to lift them to Yenagoa. And I made that very clear in my State Executive Council meeting that so far, what we received from the federal government at that point and at that time were nothing like food stuffs, but non-food items, nets, guinea brocade, and a few other stuffs. But they were all non-food items at that point. But thereafter, I have heard that some deliveries have been made. I will confirm from the State Emergency Management Agency of what has come in. But those footages you saw were not from the federal government. They were actually procured by the Bayelsa state government. Because
I saw a NEMA official in charge, and NEMA said when the plane first stopped in Benin en route to Port Harcourt, NEMA was saying that these are some of the things we're sending forth to Bayelsa. So we just wanted to clarify. And as the humanitarian minister reached out to you, have she called you? Have you guys talked? What's been going on?
No. No.
The Minister of Humanitarian Affairs have not called you?
No.
Governor, you have been quoted as saying that the federal government should declare a state of emergency in Bayelsa State. Now, under the Constitution, the President of Nigeria, has the powers through the National Assembly to declare the state of emergency. And one of the conditions is that the governor of a state must make a formal request. Have you made a formal request? Are you also aware that if the President of Nigeria decides to accede to your request and the National Assembly passes it, you may lose control because it will include deploying armed forces, it will include taking over the governance of the state to deal with that natural disaster, which is one of the bases on which a state of emergency can be declared.
At that point, Abati, we truly needed it. We truly needed it, and that was like life and death for my people. And I've officially communicated the level of destruction of lives and properties by the flood to Mr. President, and several other bodies have communicated officially to foreign embassies. I've communicated to all relevant federal offices that are to deal with this. I've even communicated to the National Assembly. So at that point, we actually needed the state of emergency. But as we speak today, the flood is receding. So though very gradually, but I think that now we are beginning to come back to our normal lives, and the state of emergency for now may not be useful again the way we had seen it from the beginning of the flood.
Well, can you take us through some of the efforts that you made as state government? Because you recall that the federal government, speaking through ministers after last Wednesday, the other Wednesday's federal executive meeting, was blaming the states for refusing to heed warnings from the NIMET, Nigeria Meteorological Agency, and also from the Hydrological Services Agency. Did Bayelsa State get any early warnings, and did you ignore those warnings? And then in the face of this devastation, what has your government done so far before saying, look, we are overwhelmed, come to Macedonia and help us?
Well, thank you, Abati. But yes, states were warned, not just Bayelsa. certain states were mentioned. I think about six states or thereabout were mentioned as states that will be impacted by the flood. But I believe that this deluge of flood is not something that a state government alone can handle. And the federal government knows this. Abati, by your thinking, is warning a state government the thing to do? Is that enough for a working relationship between the federal government and the state governments? In my own innocent mind, I had expected the federal government to invite the anticipatory states to be affected for a meeting on how best we can actually give solutions, permanent solutions where possible, to this deluge of flooding. Yes, we were warned, and will I carry my state on my head out of where there should be flood? Or will I have the resources to now build maybe dikes, as the case may be, across all the communities in my state? Where do I have that type of resources? Or do I have to now, at that point, because of the warning, dredge River Non and River Forcados? Where do I have the resources? Do I have to build a dam to stop the flooding? I think that this is not the time for a blame game to say we warned. Beyond warning, what did the federal government do with the states that have been so warned? We should have sat down to debate this matter and look out for possible solutions, just as Mr. President has now directed that the state governors be involved and relevant ministries be involved and come up with a permanent solution. This is the decision that would have been taken long before now, and not just to let the world know that we warned them. Warning them is one thing, but action on how best to prevent this flooding and how best to take palliative measures. I think that those are the important areas we should be looking at. And to your next question about the actions we have taken. From the beginning of this flood, I have not left my state, and I'm sure you would have seen a lot of videos and footages on what we have been doing daily. We will set up a flood management committee, and that committee designated certain areas, particularly within the state capital, as IDP camps, and in the local government areas where we still have some little bit of high lands. And beyond that, that committee was also vested with the management of relief materials, because we included the State Emergency Management Committee also into that. You fused it into that committee. So the committee has successfully been able to manage the procurement of relief materials. First, we approved 450 million for relief materials, foods, basically food items, and much later, again, we approved another 450 million, again, only for food materials, different from pharmaceuticals and medicines that have been handled by the Ministry of Health. And beyond that, I have also taken it as my job to ensure that I go around most of the flooded communities to first go commiserate with those who have lost their lives, empathize and sympathize with the people, and give them hope. I have continued to do that from the beginning up until today. Even today, I'm billed to travel to some other communities that we have not been to. And so far, it has been very successful. Because of the flooding, there is something more like a force majeure. I've declared a public holiday for 3 weeks now. For 3 weeks now. Initially, I started with 1 week, having faith and believing that maybe after 1 week the floods will recede, but that didn't happen. So I added another week, and we have come to the end of that week, and this is the 3rd week. So for 3 weeks now, there is a public holiday for all civil servants in Bayelsa State. And so that's the best that we can do for now, ensuring that medicines and all that are taken to the people, ensuring that we take food items to the people. And then when I also visit, I give some cash to ensure that at least they have some money in their hands to wash their clothes and do certain things that they may need to do. That's what we have been doing for the past 4 weeks or thereabout. Okay. And thankfully, and that's why we give thanks to God. Okay. Thankfully, the floods have started receding. Okay. And let me also add that in the last week, State Executive Council, we have also set up a post-flood management committee, which is headed by my deputy governor, and they will go around the state and then come up with the level of damage to road infrastructure, schools, hospitals, and every other damages to private homes, farms, and all of that, so that we can assess and come up with what we can do to assist our people.
Okay, so 2 things. Just to get a fair idea, so that means you said 450, so you spent close to $1 billion from the state coffers on this, and that's will lead me to the next one. So has the president or the vice president...
That's only for food relief, please. That's only for food relief.
So how much have you...
spent far beyond $1 billion.
So how much have you spent in total now from the state coffers? And has the president or the vice president, you know, reached out to you? And I'd like to know what you have also gotten in gifts, and what did the NDDC do in all of this?
Well, right now, like I said, I'm not going to do a blame game. I'm not going to do a blame game. I'm more interested in giving succor to my people, and also to ensure that we do not continue to lose lives and properties. So I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not blaming the federal government. I'm not blaming NDDC. It's not caused by any of them. All we expected was that being the father of the nation, they would have shown, you know, a greater interest in Bayelsa State than we saw. So we are not here today to do any blame game. What we have spent so far, I have not asked for the books, but I know it will be between the neighborhood of 1.5 to 2 billion or thereabout. But when I ask for the books, I'll get the total expenditure, because beyond the food and relief items, as I pointed out, the medicals and pharmaceuticals are differently also attended to, and our movement again to these communities and what we also give to them. So by the time we put all together, we will make it public of how much the state government has expended so far in this natural calamity that has happened to my state. For those who have so far come to give us succor by way of contributions and donations, the few that I can remember now, the governor of Akwa Ibom was here, and they gave us a check of 100 million. The former vice president and presidential candidate of the PDP, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, was here. He gave us a cash of 50 million. The presidential candidate of Labour Party and former governor of Anambra State, Peter Obi, was here. He gave the IDP camp in Yenagoa, Oxbow Lake, to be precise, he gave 2 million naira for their, I think, for their feeding that day, and promised also to contribute to the state government in taking care of them. Then I also remember that the governor of Lagos State wrote officially to me and also promised to give a donation of 50 million naira. God bless Azibapu of Ezekiel Group of Companies, who is a son of the soil, also visited us and promised to give food items donation worth the sum of 350 million. Please, I'd like to emphasize on that. It was a pledge of donation worth 350 million. And the moment those donations will come in, we'll also make it public. I think so far, these are the donations we have so far received. But again, the situation is so terrible that we are almost like cut off from the rest of the world. As you may be aware by now, the east-west road, both from the rivers axis have been cut into two, and from the delta axis cut into two. And so we have no roads to move out of Bayelsa anymore, except through flights. And that was why we had to, from our own end again, get United, which was coming into Bayelsa, but for some time stopped coming. And we had to pay over 350 million to United Airlines just to ensure that we are not totally cut off from the rest of the world. And today, I can let you know that United Airlines have resumed their flights to Yenagoa, Bayelsa State. Well, Governor Diri, I mean, very good report of efforts that have been made. And my good friend, Dr. God bless Iruani. Iruani is the one you said has made a pledge of 350 million. But, okay, all of these donations, I'd like to ask you two things. One, what has been the response from the international community? Because we have had guests on this program who have been saying the international community should also come in. So have we had Red Cross or some other international agencies with him? And then Governor Nyesom Wike next door in Rivers State, has he also visited? Has he made any pledge? I mean, he's been very active in Benue State. You are just next door to him. Did you receive any letter from him? Is he also pledging to donate to provide support? Or he too is battling the same crisis in his own state? Okay. Let me begin with your last question about my neighbor. He is also impacted, though not in the same magnitude with my state. I think about 4 local governments are heavily impacted in Rivers State. So I'm sure he's also battling with what is happening in his state. And so I like to see it from that perspective. Then about the international bodies, as I stated earlier, we had communicated to most of these international bodies, including the Red Cross, including the United Nations. And as we speak, I've received responses from the Red Cross and from the United Nations. The United Nations humanitarian coordinator in Abuja responded to my letter and has fixed Friday to visit Bayelsa State. In same vein, the Red Cross has also responded, and we are looking at a possible date of same Friday for them to also visit Bayelsa. So we have somehow internationalized what has happened to us in Bayelsa State. We have written to all the missions, embassies in Nigeria, and I believe that this will certainly pay off. It will certainly pay off because what we have seen here is that there is so much of empathy from the international system. And that's what we actually expected from our own government. And that's what we keep emphasizing. That, I keep saying that the last time I checked, Bayelsa State is not in the Republic or in Cameroon or in Guinea. And Bayelsa State contributes so much to the national coffers of this country. And if we are in such a terrible crisis, the response is so slow that you begin to wonder if we are still part and parcel of this country.
Okay, Governor.
And, like I said,
Governor.
It is not time for us to be blaming each other. It is time for action.
Okay.
It is better late that at the end of the day, that our father, the federal government, didn't respond to all of these series of cries, appeals, and calls that we have made.
Okay, Governor, real quickly, just answer yes or no, because we're wrapping up now. As the oil companies working in and out of Bayelsa State reached out to you in all of this, yes or no?
No.
None of the oil
Okay,
companies.
let me also add this, please. Let me ask those who donated. Let me also, I forgot Access Bank. Access Bank also promised 100 million donation.
Anyway, thank you very much, Governor Douye Diri. That's where we'll draw the curtain on this conversation. Thank you very much.